Yeah, I mean, it can be as small as nightmares every night and lack of sleep or disruptive sleep. The palpitations of the heart, it can increase your blood pressure. It can definitely affect your gut health. So, because we tense up so much, there's a lot of people that complain about um, back pain and neck pain, and we don't realize that we're just like so clenched, ready to like fight or flight mode. And so you're going to have an increase in your cortisol, which is also going to affect like your weight. And then when you're always so stressed out, your brain's not working, your
Mm.
brain health is off. Um, and you can also lead to other behaviors to kind of cope with that, whether it be substance use, gambling, over exercising, overeating. Um, to try to fill that void, that joy, that self-worth that they don't have during that 8-hour day. And so people can either kind of go inside or go outwardly to kind of control it. And those are things people don't realize that are all effects of their job.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to another episode of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by Kate Glendon. Kate, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Now, Kate, we always like to start off every show by learning a little bit more about the guest that we're having the conversation with. So first question I have for you is, who is Kate Glendon?
That's like such a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. But Kate Glendon's your friend, your best friend, your cheerleader. I'm a life coach. I've always had that dream of being one, just giving people advice and pushing them kind of forward. I have a passion for public health, been working in it for 20 years, and ultimately want people to feel their best. And so that's how I operate. And, I like to do things that make me feel good. So whether it's running, walking, going to the beach, or spending time, with friends, I choose every day what's going to make me feel better. And I really have lived a great life and traveled. And I think that kind of makes me who I am. And so I'm kind of happy to be on this new platform of being a mindset and life coach and helping people be the best they can be, because I know what it feels like to not feel like that. So um, that's my goal for the rest of my life, is to just help people be their best selves.
All right, now I'm curious to know, Kate, how you made that transition, or what made you want to make that transition from public health after you were in that for 20 years to being a life coach.
Well, I think part of public health is always like marketing, how to be how to be better, right? How to prevent this disease, how to, not get the flu, why you should get the flu shot, like why you should not eat, fast food every day. So it was ultimately kind of combined. And then, we all get stuck. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we, know what to do next. And no one can really help us. Like, we know we need to feel better, but we don't know how to do it. And that was me. Like, I just knew I wasn't myself. I didn't know like how to move forward. Was it, a new relationship with myself, with a partner, with a friend, with a new job? Like, I just couldn't figure it out. So the word blah like describes a lot of my days. And, what was the point? I knew it was just a routine. I was bored. And then I was like, okay, it's not that I am depressed or that I need therapy. It's just I need to reframe my thinking and like what is working and what's not. Working all the time clearly was impacting me. So being a perfectionist and workaholic, which I, kind of learned from my family, they're all very successful and working all the time. I kind of took on that habit, and, the habit of, oh, I got to do the next best thing. And that just led to the next best burnout. And, the universe sent me a sign. I remember it was like very beginning of spring. They had just lifted some of the COVID laws, so you could like go to restaurants and eat inside. And, it was like a banana peel slipped down the stairs on my butt. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm doing everything too fast. Like I just need to take a time out. But then when you go from zero to, from 100 to 0 and you're home, it's like, oh, what do I do? And so that's kind of how I just started looking into this more. Like, how do I reframe my thoughts? What really is mindfulness? And like, how do you reprogram a brain? Like, that's really hard, especially when you're older, because, your brain is still developing until you're 25 and making those great decisions. And I was already past 25. I was, way past 25. So I needed to kind of just take a step back. And that's the long-winded question of why I switched over.
And it's interesting, right? Because coming from the line of work you were in, it's almost like one of those like practice what you preach, right? Because I'm sure depending on what the job was, like, hey, take care of yourself. This is how you prevent illness and different things like that. And, sometimes we don't always look at it as working too much or, different things like that is going to prevent us from living the fullest life we can, right?
Absolutely. I was the one, helping everyone else not burn out and, have great mental health. And it's like, oh my God, I'm an imposter. Like if they saw what my insides look like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and it takes a while. It's not something like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to feel that I'm going to just be this different person. You can start thinking like that, but it really takes a while. I mean, it took a long year to 2 years, and I'm still working on myself, plus working on all the other stuff that we always want to work on. But, it really was, scary for me. It went from a should, I should go to the grocery store. I should do something about the way I'm feeling to nope, this is big and scary. And I'm going to kind of write myself an action plan of what I need to kind of improve on using the wheel of life and what worked and didn't work. Did I want to lose my husband? Did I want to lose my friends because I was just in my own way?
Right. And your story is very similar to mine. I was in a line of work for a long time, and it was very stressful. It was impacting, like I felt like I was really helping families and kids and stuff like that. But then you have to look back at what's at your home. Are you helping your kids? Are you impacting them? I was stressed all the time. I was a hot mess, as we'll get into later with what you like to talk about. And you have to look like, is it worth it? And then when some people get to the extreme of giving up that career, that's a big life change, right? It's a life altering change, especially if it's something that you've been doing for a long time. And then you have to figure out again, what am I doing here? What are my next steps and all that kind of stuff, and some fear in regards to finances and this, that, and the next thing. But after you decided you were going to make that switch, I know you just talked about, having to make those choices every day, but what did it look like for you for the first little while?
Oh, wow. It was just like, how do I get through the day without crying? You know what I mean? How am I not triggered by people? How do I feel? Who do I need to be around? So it was all of kind of I believe in energy, and I believe in that, a third spirit universe type of thing. And it was just how do I manifest? How do I ask the universe to show me a sign, or, how do I live in a way that protects me in a bubble? And it was a lot of reading and reflection and reading different types of books and meditation and just talking to people that kind of understood where I was at. I have a lot of great friends that are also kind of in the world of life coaches or work with people who are under a lot of stress. And, it was going back to my roots. Okay, I used to be a runner, so I would start making a plan to run a lot. And I had to do limits. Okay, you can't take Zooms while making dinner. You can't do two things at once just because you have something. You have to set a time. I would, tell my husband, all right, tell me when it's this time, and everything shut off so I could spend time there. Or I literally took the work email off my phone on the weekends, or I think for a little longer than that, but just didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Just to have, so I didn't see it, because you constantly I hate, and then I would turn off notifications just because I can't have notifications on my phone. I'm that type of person. And so it helped me prevent from checking. And then okay, had to set boundaries. And that's like really hard when you are like a go-getter, perfectionist, and want to be everywhere, because I also had the fear of missing out on something. I didn't want to miss that opportunity to be known for something, to get that, to get the better idea. I guess I'm a little competitive. I played sports as a child. So like, I get it. And then I was like, does that really matter? Like, is that worth my time and energy? Like, is that what I want to be remembered for? No, like I wouldn't be remembered for like being happy and doing things, not like always being at work, or, cause my mom always worked, but that was okay. Like, it's just like what you grew up with. So that's, then you think back, and as she's retiring, she says, it's not worth it. And I'm like, you're really right. Like, you spent your whole life. And what if you don't like the people you work with? That makes it even worse. So I really had to like, try, and sometimes some days were harder than the other. And I literally had to write it down. I literally had to put alerts in my phone, like check-ins. Like, it was a constant trial and trial of things. And so eventually it became better, and like you get a new focus. And then sometimes there's just days where like you accept it, right? You just kind of like, it's a roller coaster. And that's what I tell my clients, like when they work with me, like it's not easy. And there's going to be, what, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing, because it's hard to change your habitual pattern. And I think we need to realize that, and you need to have things kind of set up of, okay, like what would that person do that you want to be? So if you want to be a director, a CEO, or just someone with a balanced lifestyle, what do they do every day? And then kind of start living like that and making decisions like that. And that really helped. Like, no, I'm not like engaging in that. And so that really helped me. And that's what I do with my clients as well. It's like, okay, well, let's come up with a goal. You have the goal should be very scary. And it was for me. And otherwise it's like a grocery list, and figure out what, how we're going to get there in the next steps. And a lot of that was just creating some calendar integrity about how I wanted to feel, so I could see it and be reminded of it, because when something's new, it's easy to forget.
Absolutely. No. One thing I wanted to kind of touch base on, and just to give us the right context. So before you transitioned out of public health, what did the typical day look like for you towards the end of your time in the field?
So that was kind of hard because it was the middle of the pandemic. So I worked 24/7. So it would start up early, see how many cases I had, work with that. And then you never knew what every day was. It was like coming in, okay, what was today going to be like? But like then in the beginning of it, it was very much so like on fire. It was new, it was exciting, like you felt important. And then it got very tedious and tiring, as did everyone else get. So that was one part of it. And then as time had moved on, it was just like, okay, who am I after this big thing that we just occurred, and endless amount of work and reports and being out in the community, and kind of expected to be to remember what I used to do. And that is very hard, because the world isn't 2019 anymore. And it's hard to understand that, because then, oops, monkeypox came. Oops, Ebola might have been coming up. So it was a constant fear factor of like, okay, what's going to be thrown at me today? So you're almost in defense mode. And that's okay. Like, I'm capable and strong enough to handle all of that. But at some point, it's like the pile is like this big. And it's like, okay, I gave up working on the weekends like 3 months ago. But like, if I don't do that, who's going to do my work? So that was there for a while, and it's just kind of accepted, like, it can be done another day. The mindset is like, it's great, I have job security. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you learn, like, it's so hard because like some things you work on, so like they're yours, like they're your baby, you started with them, but eventually you have to learn to give them away to other people, to delegate. And I think that's really hard. when you have a project that's yours that like you have developed, is just to let someone else take it and run. But that's what you have to do to grow.
Mhm.
And that took a while, to be honest. And I'm glad I'm at a place where I can do that. And that leads for new doors to open things up.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you kind of touched on a lot in there, you use the term yourself, calendar integrity.
Oh,
So
yeah.
is that one of the things that you kind of take clients through in the beginning, just
Oh,
setting those
yes.
boundaries?
Calendar integrity is so important, right? Because you know how everyone says like they're so busy. Oh, I'm too busy to do that. You're not busy. You're just not managing your time. And like, no one wants to hear that if that's your response. Believe me, don't say that to someone. It doesn't go well. Most people like that. But it's really the truth, because you're not prioritizing what you need to do. And so in order to change, you have to do that in there. And when you're really busy, you forget things, and you forget meetings, and there's things overlapping. Plus, if you have children that have sports, like that's just even wild. And so you have to put in there and block it out and be okay that if in an hour you spend doing, your mindset work or your house cleaning stuff or whatever you need to do in that 1 hour, when that 1 hour is up, you have to be okay with walking away with that. Whatever you got done in that hour, you can have that same project the next day, but then you got to move on to the next. And so you're blocking out your time so that you can get the things done, so that you can manage and do other things. If you're too busy to read your email, there's something going on there. If you're too busy to respond to a text message, that's a lie, because there's talks to text, there's auto reply, there's 3 letters that you could put back, hey, and there's also 1 letter too. It's called K. And so, like that's, those are just excuses for them. And you have to get over the excuses, because the excuses are the why you have the results that you have now. And so to have better results, to have new results, you really have to take a time of where are you wasting your time? Granted, we all love to watch your shows, but I mean, you don't have to do it every night. You could do something else. But that depends on what your goal is. So if your goal is to run more, I mean, you just plan it in, and then everything else kind of falls down. And that's a little easier to become a marathon runner than, if you're someone that wants to lose weight, then, you have to kind of go through the steps of, planning out your food for the day and be willing to do that and grocery shop, and all of that takes a little bit more planning and integrity. But if you don't do the things that you say that you're going to do, when will you do them?
Mhm. And I think that also, really we're our own accountability partner. Unless if you, invite somebody into that, or somebody like you, right, with your role. But we can set our goals, and we can, put on the calendar what it is we want to do. There's not going to be very many people, especially if it's with our personal life, that are going to be like, how you doing with that? How you doing with what you're setting, right? So that mindset too of, okay, this is here. I've scheduled this in. To some people, it might be basic, but I've scheduled into my calendar, and it's going to get done, right? And treating almost the things we need to do in our personal life like business, and holding it up to that standard as well.
Right. And you have to do it even if you don't want to do it, but you can't go into that feeling that way. You have to kind of, before you can even get to calendar integrity, is kind of flip your mindset. Like you have to
Right.
schedule it. But if you're showing up with I don't want to be here, and that face that shows it, it's going to come through with whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a piece that I work on with my clients as well, because before you can even get to, having responsibility over your calendar, how are you showing up? Because that's the results that you're getting. So what you think and feel also shows up in your actions in the world around you. So if you're always feeling and thinking negatively, everything around you starts to become negative, or you start to notice that more, rather than showing up, with an abundant attitude that you're so grateful and thankful, then doors start opening up for you. And, I practice both, and I can tell you the results on both are exactly what I've just said. And the more open you are and the more you're willing to, okay, get curious. Like, I'm not going to say you're never going to be sad, you're never going to have anxiety, you're never going to do this, but like, okay, why am I thinking this? Is this real, or is this just what my brain is telling me based off of fear and anxiety? And does that support the action and the results that I want in my life? If not, all right, let's reframe it. Why do I feel this way? This happened. Okay. How can I, what can I do to change that situation? Or how can I reframe it? Or can I just brush it off my shoulder? And, oh, that's, kind of thing. So that's really important to understand that, some things need to be brushed off our shoulder. They're just thoughts from our old past. And that's okay.
Now, I know for a lot of people, when you're making changes, it's typically best if you implement small changes and make those adjustments instead of just doing kind of grand scheme things. So are there any specific, maybe habits that you teach to clients or that you had to kind of embrace yourself that were helpful in just kind of shifting that mindset?
Yeah. Like, I think to just be up to a 1% change every day is important, because then those little things add up. Because when you try to go like full all at it, like, I'm going to eliminate this, I'm not going to do that, I'm never having chocolate again, like, you are going to burn out, and I'm going to find you in a closet eating chocolate. That's just how it works. Okay. I've been there, done that. Like, it was good the first two, but it's not how it works. So it's like, okay, let's talk about what are your plans for this week? Like, what do you want to do to change something this week? And maybe that it's this week, we're like, for instance, if we're talking about eating, we are, but eating all like 5 servings of fruits. So you're having fruit every day. That's that's better than last week. Then you have fruit, and then maybe you drink some more water. And if it's like, if you find yourself that you are, not showing up like in a good way, or feeling just like kind of icky, like, okay, what do you like to do? Maybe you like to read. Well, maybe if you schedule that in first thing in the morning, you start your morning off doing something you love. So, you gotta, we start small. I mean, we can't, if you want lasting change, you're not going to go, run and lift crazy amounts. You're just, maybe it's just putting your shoes on and walking towards the door. And then we got to see where you're at, everyone is so different.
Oh, yeah. And everybody's lifestyles, and, you talk about being a hot mess, right? So is it okay to be a hot mess if you are taking steps to do better?
Let's clarify hot mess. So I think that, like, we use hot mess, and right, it's a kind of a trendy term, but like, what is that mess? Like, are you really hot mess, or is it just like what we're kind of, is that your excuse? Is that your excuse for how you're, showing up every day? Oh, I'm just a hot mess when I'm here, right? It's better to be, there than not. But why do you, let's talk about that. Like, why be a hot mess? Why not be hot and together? I mean, so, so if you have to say that to yourself, like, I'm hot while I'm working it out, that's great, because you're working, and those are positive words. I'm, whatever you need to do, I'm doing it. Regardless of how I show up today, I'm here. Even if you go to the gym in your pajamas, you're a mess, you're there. You know what I mean? So what is your action that you're doing? If that means that, like, you're making food for your family, and that you're doing that at, like, very early in the morning, and you're tired, but you're doing it. So it's all about action. And sometimes that's kind of the hardest part to do, because that means you have to actually physically do something and stop talking about it. And, we try to get to start doing it right away, because when you get a little bit of momentum from doing the action, it feels good, and you'll keep doing more things. You'll be open to it. And sometimes when we're just talking, we find out like, oh my God, I didn't realize that belief or that what that person said to me is the reason I do this. And so that's kind of where it's not just about the job. It's not just about like starting or leaving a business, or you not liking this person, or you hate that your husband never cleans the bathroom. Like there's more to it. Like, what is it? And we have to address that first, because there's these perceptions that we've had and developed since we were little, or someone said to us at recess. Like if you can think about one thing right now of someone that was mean to you when you were growing up, I can bet you already thought of that person. And let's talk about that and how that has affected you, because maybe that's like has limited you.
Absolutely. Now, another thing I want to talk about as well is for those who are, actively in that situation where work is kind of taking over their life. There's a lot of impacts to that, and we've talked about some of them. But what are some of the things that people don't necessarily consider that are kind of those longer lasting impacts of not having that work-life balance and letting yourself burn out?
Yeah, I mean, it can be as small as nightmares every night and lack of sleep or disruptive sleep. The palpitations of the heart. It can increase your blood pressure. It can definitely affect your gut health. So, because we tense up so much, there's a lot of people that complain about back pain and neck pain, and we don't realize that we're just like so clenched, ready to like fight or flight mode. And so you're going to have an increase in your cortisol, which is also going to affect like your weight. And then when you're always so stressed out, your brain's not working, your brain health is off. And you can also lead to other behaviors to kind of cope with that, whether it be substance use, gambling, over exercising, overeating, to try to fill that void, that joy, that self-worth that they don't have during that 8-hour day. And so people can either kind of go inside or go outwardly to kind of control it. And those are things people don't realize that are all effects of their job. And when you come home and your job is taken out on your partner, or you find yourself getting very short with your children, or your mom and dad, like that is because you're not managing the work life, or you're missing birthday parties, you're taking phone calls when it's not the appropriate time, because we don't have boundaries and we don't have an outlet. So we're not dealing with that. And if you're not drilling out your feelings and just kind of at the end of the day throwing them out of everything that you thought that day, and just let that day be done and go to bed and say, if you had 3 situations that are still bothering you, make your own ending. So go to bed and kind of solve that yourself in the way that you wish you resolved it, because maybe you overreacted or reacted too fast, or they just don't feel good to you. And then remember 3 things that went well. And then you could do the same thing in the morning, or you can take, everyone usually gets a break. You can take that moment and do something about it. Don't skip lunch. Don't work through lunch. Get out of that office. You need an environment, right? So even 10 minutes in sunshine walking is a very good stress reliever. First of all, you're getting real sunlight, real vitamins from the sun. And walking through a situation helps decrease the stress, and kind of you're outside of your environment so you can think differently. And that's really important. So you can go back in. If you start to feel anxious, if you have the ability to go outside, do something, distract yourself, to kind of readjust everything in your body is really important. Because when we start, taking away things because we want to get more work done, or we're trying to serve other people, it's not going to work, because the only person that matters is you and how you value yourself. If you're looking through validation from other people about your work and being recognized, you're never going to find it. It's like very short, and then you're crushed the next day. So you have to work on finding what makes you worthy and valid, and only you can do that. So if you stay in situations where you're constantly, I forget the name of that game, like you bump one and the other monster shows up. They're all like,
Oh yeah.
it's that's always going to happen. It's like you're always, you know, taking care of one situation, feeling really good about it, but then five more come
One
out.
fire out.
So it's like you're a Ghostbuster. And
Yeah.
Is that really worth living for? It really got me was like when I'm, if eventually, hopefully never, when I have to pass on to the next life, like, am I going to regret staying here for this long and being treated like this? Would I allow my children? Would I allow my friend? And then, okay, no. So why would I allow myself? Would you treat a plant like that? So you have to start thinking more outside like that, but we can't because we're so stuck in our own, horse-like thinking and seeing only what we see. We can't see the outer picture. So start, being that eagle to see everything above, and you'll realize like, this not right. And what are you going to do? So empower yourself. Like you could do anything you want. The choice is yours, but you have to make that. And that's where I guide my clients to say, what do you want to do? And how could we get there? And I think that's so important. People don't realize that. That's what life coaches are there for, to help you, because they understand you're stuck. Because most of us have had a situation that they had or needed a life coach, and they get it.
And I think too, like the heart, as you're talking, I'm also thinking back to like when I was in my career, and it's like, it comes with so much, your identity, sometimes like that validation of this is what I have to give, right? So you put this time in, you do your job, but then at the end of the day, eventually it can catch up on you or catch up to you. And depending on, maybe you have to miss something, maybe, you keep missing your kids, whatever, or, you're tired or what have you. Everybody's going to have a light bulb moment, if you will. And you just have to really look at, is it worth it? Right. And obviously that's what you were saying. And I think like for us, we've did some shifting, I guess you could say, in our careers over the last like 6-7 years. And it's more like work comes along with family. You're not trying to fit family and life now into your work schedule, right? And it definitely does take away that like stress. Like you were talking, and I remember at night, like I would be laying there like, oh my gosh, like, did I do this right? All these things that it's like, you can't fix it now anyways, but here you are in bed, playing it over and over in your mind. So like that part can get tricky. And I think it's just, being able to also put that off switch on. It's harder said than done, right? Especially, for if you're a business owner, it's sort of like all rides on you. If it's a job that you really need, and if you didn't have it, then you don't know how you would make ends meet. And so like I get all that, but if you can look a little deeper, and sometimes even outside of the box of, okay, if it really isn't working, what else can I do? Or I really want to stay here, but is there some ways that we can do things differently with the job, with family, and I guess try to make it work?
Right. Like how, is this just an investment until my next career, my next show takes off, right? Because otherwise you have this ripple effect and you're just convincing yourself that everything's normal, and it's not. And, people should want to know about your family, and they should be flexible with that. And they should honor that you respect the fact that you can't work that day because there's something you need to do. And you need to take care of yourself. So if you're limited with the time that you can spend to just go to the doctor, that's not self-care or self-love or,
Right.
Appropriate. You need that time. And it's so important because when you're shifting everything around just to please one person and then you're thinking about them at night, you don't get paid for that. So it's like, whether you're salary or not, that shouldn't, you can't allow them in your thoughts. And I think some of the best advice people have told me is like, if you wouldn't have them at your house for coffee, why are you talking or thinking about them more or talking about them, right? Because no matter what you do, like if you're afraid to take a day off, like they're still going to talk about you whether you're in the office or not. And, the worry about if something's going to go wrong or whatever is still going to be there. And the best thing to do is to go to another country for like 3 weeks where they can't get a hold of you and then they have to figure it out. And then you go back and you see it with different eyes and you're like, wow, I was right with everything that I'm thinking. And now I know my plan.
Now, I know, so we've talked about a few things here, and I want to, for those who are, maybe in a job that's taking up a lot of their life more than it should be and don't have an immediate transition plan, you gave us some tactical things that can be done there. So just to go through a couple of them. Number one, don't work through your lunch.
Don't work through your lunch. It's not worth it.
Don't work through your lunch. Make sure that you have that calendar integrity. One thing I had to start doing when I first started working from home during the pandemic was have a cutoff time, because otherwise, especially if you're new to the remote environment, it's very easy to just keep working.
Keep going.
It's just really easy to not stop. The other thing too was just getting outside, getting fresh air. What are some other tactical things that you think would be helpful for people to know?
Don't answer emails outside of your work hours unless you're getting paid to. Don't communicate with people when you're off sick or out on vacation. There's no reason to. If there's no plan in set, make one before you go out on vacation. Schedule one day off a month, whether you have to call out sick or just take a personal day. You need that. You got that. You deserve that. And kind of find something in the middle of the week that you like to do and go out at night and do it, whether you do a date night, whether you just, schedule something to break it all up, and figure out why you're there. Are you there because this is a transition moment that you can't, are you actively looking? Can you have a conversation with a supervisor to make your situation better? If you can't, it's good to know that, because then you know your next step. And just remember that the people that you work with is business. Business is business. It's show business. But at the end of the day, people make decisions based on money. And it's easy. They're always going to be a replacement. So don't worry about it if you leave or you take off. Don't worry about feeling guilty if you find another job. But some other things to do is, leave some time on Friday afternoons to catch up on any needed work and plan out your Monday so that you're not worrying about it on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. I always help people kind of warm up each day with something that that's easy to do, then work on your big project, and then kind of end the day with something in between, like light and hard. So that way you kind of hit all bases. You've at least accomplished 3 things for the day. And then if you still need to work on them, schedule them throughout the rest. If you're able to have a day out of the office where you're going to meetings is always really important. And schedule like a meeting if you work from home or you just like kind of work in an office so that you're interacting with someone. Because sometimes we get so if you don't have a team or you're part of a team, like you stuck in a cubicle or at home and you don't have that interaction. And that's kind of good. Just to talk to another staff member about something work related or not.
And I think those are so helpful, especially for people who may be listening and it's like, I do like my job. I've just let too many things go and now it's taking over, right? So you can always pull back. Like nobody's saying to, quit your job or anything, but you can look at things differently. And then whether it's your boss or whoever it is, just let them know you are going to do things differently, right? Maybe you don't need to tell your boss, maybe just internally saying, okay, you know what, there's some things I'm going to change. Do that on Friday. plan out your Monday so you know, because that weekend stress, like I haven't had that Sunday night stress for 7 years, right? Of, oh gosh, it's going to be Monday
God
tomorrow.
bless you.
But
Yes, that's so good.
I used to
And
have it all the time, right? But if
another
you
thing,
plan it out, then
yeah, that's
yeah,
so good. The Sunday scaries are terrible. But
Sunday
sometimes,
scary.
like, right, you're working and you're just like bored, but you like your job, but you don't want to leave. So it's
Yeah.
like what I also tell people is like, look at something that you already are doing and figure out how to take it to the next level. So always adding value to something, then that adds value to your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then people see you differently. So how can you upgrade something that you're already doing to show that you can either better system in place or create something that is more streamlined. And that kind of is good for people who want to stay where they are, but they just need a new creative flow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a situation like that you just laid out there, where you're in a job that you like, but maybe things aren't going great. One thing I would recommend, anyways, is maybe getting involved with volunteering. Usually, there's industry associations. If you're really passionate about your field, but maybe just what you're doing at that moment isn't a great fit.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's a great way to meet people who are like-minded, and also maybe even find that next opportunity. Anything else that you would like to add to that, Kate?
Yeah, I think that's really good. If you can belong to a networking group like a chamber of commerce or something in your profession, or look for one. You can find them on LinkedIn or anything like that. Like, is something that's really good. And sometimes like we don't really know who we work with. So what I used to do is like you plan lunches or lunch and learns, and they could be about a topic, but it could also be about getting to know each other. So on a deeper level. And so that kind of increases morale as well. So do something fun, like, whatever that would be. Like one time I remember painting rocks and then you get to vote and it was just something different. And, coloring is relaxing. So.
Mm-hmm. And I like what you said about the midweek, right? Like you don't want to be that person that says all I do is work and go home, right? And or if you're just so tired all the time, because then you're feeling that you're not being productive in your personal life, right? Well, which you're not. But I mean, if you can change that, and you may be tired, and it doesn't, I'm sure when you're talking to the people that you work with, it doesn't need to be anything extreme, but just filling yourself up with something that you actually enjoy, a walk or anything, right? Instead of just that mundane, like 9 to 5, home, dinner, sit on the couch and watch shows for the evening, right?
Right. I'm like, oh, I'm so bored of this. Like, oh, this is all we do. I remember having these conversations. It's like, we just work and then we eat and then we watch TV and then it restarts. Like, this shouldn't be like.
Yeah.
So,
No, you want to have that fulfillment.
yeah, you have to fill your weeks in with things because then you're not living for Friday, you're not living for Saturday. And
Yes.
you're, so, and, remember yourself, like your work is your work and your work is an investment towards your future into the things that you want to do. So, work isn't who you are. It's just what you do that job to do the things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Kate, just in terms of what you're working on now, okay, I guess I'll ask this: what can we look forward to from you in the future?
Oh, that's exciting news. So in the future, for those that live local in Connecticut, we do have a stress relieving workshop that's coming up in Connecticut. But for those that don't, we have them online. So we'll do something similar in April. And we have this Sunday is a live, just like open, informal Zoom meeting with me just to ask any questions that you would like. And so those will be held at least once a month. And people can find that information by going to my website, which is glendoncoaching.com, as well as just my Instagram page, which is Kate Glendon _coaching. And there'll be advertisements there. But when you go to my website, you are offered a free complimentary coaching session for 30 minutes, 5 days of health newsletter, and there's many blogs about everything that I've talked about today. So there'll be more group coaching coming up, and more workshops people can join just to listen to, right? So I just did one about reframing negative thoughts, which will be coming out shortly for people to tap in to listen to. So there's a lot of free things that I have on my website, because I think it's important for people to get some kind of, something every day that's going to help them. And whether it's a 2-minute video or a 30-second thought of myself that will help you, of motivation, it's important that people get that. So I also do a private Facebook group, which you can enter and find on my website.
All right. And one last question I have. What's your favorite thing about what you do now?
What I do now, it's just like, I get happy when my clients like get to find that moment, right? Like we all like to see people have that aha moment, and that I don't have this crazy Sunday scary every single day. Like, I know that I am very smart and very successful, and and I get to do this, So this is super cool. Ask me if I was 21, if I'd be a CFO of my own company. No, like, but I'm so happy that I got this opportunity and met the right people to help me lead there. And it, and being on podcasts, which I love. So
that's great.
Okay. We thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. Have a great day.
You as well. And for everyone who watched or listened to this episode of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast, thank you for letting us disrupt your everyday.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.